Every time it storms, something taps on my bedroom window. I'm sure for most of you, when you see bad weather coming, you worry about the heavy rains and hard winds. You worry about damage to your vehicles and your house. You worry about the power going out, and those are all perfectly normal things to worry about. But for me, the only thing I worry about is whatever taps on my bedroom window during a storm. It's not the tapping itself that bothers me. It's unsettling, sure, but it's just tapping. No, what worries me, what makes me afraid, is that each time I've looked at it, it's gotten closer, and I can't risk looking again. You see, the first time it tapped on the window, the storm was really going. I mean, I could hear the wind coming through the chimney, and it was howling. The rain was sideways and so heavy that I couldn't see the house across the street, and all I could see of the neighbors beside me was the light in their kitchen window. It was about 10 that first night, and I was tired, so rather than stay up watching a show or something, I just put the emergency flashlight on the bedside table, and I went to sleep, thinking that the worst that could happen was a power outage. The rain was perfect. I mean, the sound of heavy rain at night, it's just the perfect setting for sleep, so I was out almost immediately. But then I woke up to the taps on my bedroom window. At first, I laid there unsure of if I had actually heard anything, but then they came again. And I scrambled out of bed so fast I nearly fell onto the floor. I was horrified to hear the tapping, not only because it was the middle of the night and a ferocious storm, but because my bedroom is on the second floor. With no porch and no way for anyone to be at the window, I was immediately in such a panic that I couldn't catch my breath. I stared at the closed curtains that barely muffled the taps against the window. Nobody could be there. It was impossible. Yet the taps continued. I considered just yelling. I considered calling the police, but after hearing the taps, I realized they weren't hard taps at all. Nobody was trying to break in or anything. In fact, the taps were really random. 2 or 3 here, 5 or 6 there. And they were sporadic, like maybe a branch hitting the window, even though the nearest tree was a good 20 feet away. But that had to be it, because anything else was impossible. Finally, after what felt like 20 minutes, but was probably only 5, I decided to look and see what was hitting the glass. I knew I couldn't turn my bedroom light on because I'd never be able to see outside. I knew that the moon was mostly covered by thick, dark rain clouds, and it wouldn't be enough to see anything. So I grabbed the flashlight, switched it on, and with a few motivational breaths, I very slowly pulled the curtain aside and shined my light out the window. There was nothing. Nothing touching the glass, no branches in the wind, just nothing. I sharply turned the flashlight up, down, and all around the window, but I'm telling you that there was nothing there. Until I looked down into the backyard, and the flashlight reflected a pair of eyes looking up at me from the back fence. And as soon as I noticed them, or they noticed me, they started coming forward. I nearly dropped the flashlight in fright. Someone was in my backyard, standing in the middle of this horrible storm. I knew the house was locked up tight. They couldn't get inside, but they didn't need to be in my yard at all. I've got a privacy fence for a reason. Just then, something caught my eye to the side. Another beam of light, but not in my yard. I looked over to see my neighbor was also shining a light through the heavy rain and into their own backyard. I followed their beam of light to see that whoever was in their yard was so much closer to their house. What the hell was going on here? Who were these people, and why were they in our yards in the middle of such a bad storm? I closed the curtain and grabbed my phone, then went back to the window facing the neighbor's house to see their flashlight was locked onto the figure in their yard. The figure that was taking one slow, deliberate step at a time, inching closer to their back door. The rain was still so heavy that I couldn't make out anything other than it was a figure, a 2-legged silhouette of someone determined to push through the weather and get into their home. I lifted my phone up and tapped the screen to turn on. I needed to call the police, get someone here to stop these people and help my neighbors, to help me. But then I heard a soft, overly gentle tap once again on the window near my bed. My stomach dropped. My blood ran cold. Somehow that person had gone from the far back of the yard and up to the second floor window to tap on the glass again, in less than, 2 minutes? I froze in panic. My lip trembled at the intermittent sound of the tapping. Why were they doing this? And how were they at that window? How had they woke me up to tap on the glass just to be at the back fence? Nothing made any sense. I called the police. Now, do you know that sweet moment of relief that comes when you're in danger as you call the police and that operator answers? It's that brief second of, okay, help is coming. Someone is going to help me now. I wanted that so badly. But instead, I got the busy signal. I started repeating the word no over and over again, all while hearing taps on the glass. Then a pause, a long pause, and more taps. I checked the window facing the neighbor again. The flashlight had moved. They were no longer on the second floor shining down. Instead, I could see the flashlight waving around on the first floor, shining light against whatever had come into their house through the back door. The storm was so hard that I couldn't be sure if it was the wind or the neighbors screaming. I crossed the room again to the window near my bed and ripped the curtain back, hoping to scare them away from my window or something. But yet again, the area around my window was clear. I shot my light to the back fence and saw the eyes exactly where I had left them. They blinked once, then bobbed up and down ever so slightly as the figure took a step like it had been waiting for the light to activate it. I watched as it took several more steps, so slow and methodical. At no point did the rain let up enough for me to see any sort of features, only the eyes reflecting my flashlight. It was coming closer still. Why now? Why didn't it do this when I was at the other window? A million thoughts and fears went through my mind, and in the chaos of it all, I had one simple, stupid idea. I turned the flashlight off. My backyard went dark, no eyes reflecting in the light. I couldn't see the rain pouring down. It was just darkness. For all I knew, that thing could have decided to start running into the house. Fear overtook me. I switched the light back on, and it noticed. The eyes had been in the same spot, but now that the light was on, the thing took another step. I switched the light off and stared, but it was an impossible darkness made much more obscure by the heavy rain. I wanted to look again. I wanted to make sure it was still at the last place, but how could I do that without activating it? I couldn't. I stared for so long that my eyes became painfully dry. I let the curtains close and I blinked until I could see again. If it had moved, it would be at the back door by now. It would be inside coming up the stairs. So I waited. I waited and nothing happened. The storm rolled thunder like distant war drums signaling an attack, and I just sat there. Then came the tapping again. I jumped at the sound, felt ice where my blood should be. It was at the window. Or was it still in the yard? I slowly pulled the curtain aside, but still nothing. I covered part of the flashlight and used what little bit of the light I could to see that the space around the window was still empty. I had to know. I couldn't sit there not knowing. So with most of the light covered, I checked the backyard, and as soon as the eyes reflected, I pulled my flashlight away and switched it off. The eyes were at the same spot, possibly one step closer now, but it hadn't moved at all. That's when I completely realized that whatever it was would only move when the light was on it. And the tapping? It was bait, a trap for people like me to hear it and check outside. I crawled across the room to the neighbor's side window and looked out. Through the storm, I could see the back door was still open and the lights were on throughout the house. But nothing moved. No shadows, no silhouettes of the neighbors inside. The storm cleared out around 4 a.m., but I didn't look outside again until the sun had come up at 6:45. My backyard was empty. I checked my house and the doors were all still locked, the windows closed, and when I eventually checked the backyard, I didn't see any indication that something had been there at all last night. The thought occurred to me that I had imagined it, that it had been a nightmare or some horribly vivid hallucination. Then I thought of my neighbors. They would confirm if it was real or not. I went next door, and when they didn't answer, I went through their gate to their backyard to see that yes, the back door was still wide open. The kitchen was soaking wet from rain. The table was flipped over, the chairs had been smashed to bits, long stretches of the wall had been scratched with 2-inch wide gashes like a bear had been on a rampage. I didn't check the rest of the house, but I called out for them, and I got nothing. They were just gone. I finally got a hold of the police. I told the operator what happened last night, and they sent a car out. The police didn't call me crazy. They didn't ask me questions that could solve the case. They just told me that I was one of the lucky ones. 36 people went missing that night. Another 17 during the next storm. And after that, they made it a law to have shutters on every window. But mistakes still happen, and people still get curious. You see, they only come when it storms, and somehow they tap on your windows to get you to look. They need you to look. They need you to watch them come into your home and take you away. I think that those things are getting hungry, getting desperate, because it's spreading and it's not just our town anymore. I've heard reports of an unusual amount of people going missing. So the next time it storms, no matter what you hear, don't look outside your windows at night. Because if you hear tapping, they're out in the rain, waiting for the next curious person to shine a light on them. And they aren't patient anymore. They no longer walk when you look at them. They run. Hey folks, it's Gloom here. I want to thank you for watching this video. It was a really good experience writing and narrating it. I hope I was able to keep the mood creepy and just a little gloomy. If you like the content, please subscribe and let me know in the comments that you'll be sticking around for more stories. And thank you to everyone that already supports the channel with subs, likes, and comments. It really means the most to me. Now, if you can't wait for the next upload, check out the books I've written in the description below. But that's all for tonight. Stay safe out there.